That's not a
Testing.
Can you hear me?
No, Chad, we can't hear you.
I need to speak up.
Congratulations, Jason.
Cheers, Jason.
Congratulations,
Today's sermon is Lieutenant Colonel John H. Page. Just real quick, you guys need to do me a favor, okay? Please silence all your cell phones and electronic devices, or else I'll have to stick specialist for Q-Stir on you, and I don't want to do that. You guys ever see Secret Life of Pets? I call him Snowball. You know what I mean? Okay? He looks all cute and cuddly, but don't get him angry. He's vicious. All right, as a reminder, it's appropriate for all civilian guests to place their hand over their hearts during the singing of the national anthem. We'd also like you to remind guests to silence all the phones, as I said. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of the official party and sing the national anthem by orbital harmony.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hail, at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Orbital Harmony. That was fantastic. Chaplain Adam Embry will now lead us in the invocation.
Will you pray with me, please? Almighty God, we are gathered here to celebrate the 22-year military career of Senior Master Sergeant Jason Banda, our beloved Bandalorian. 22 years is a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, something called the Air Force. From deployments across the world to standing up the force, the Space Force that is, to his time at HCTS, his career has been marked by integrity, selflessness, excellence, agility, innovation, and boldness, all around military leadership. He's been a model airman and guardian, a model SEO. Moreover, he's been a model human being, husband and father. He now has more time to invest in his wonderful family. So Lord, please make each moment special and life-giving. Along the way, he's taught us there's no such thing as luck. He told us to do or do not do, because there is no try. He's also warned us when it's a trap. I do ask you to forgive him for believing that hokey religions are no match for a good blaster. And Lord, I do find his lack of faith disturbing. We do pray for the next episode of his life. We pray he makes enough to pay off his Mandalorian armor in retirement. And while he's out in the Star Wars cosplay circuit, we pray he's able to do some great things for L3 Harris along the way. Lord, Jason is a good man, a wonderful wingman, and he served his country well. Help him to stay on target. In your holy name we pray, because this is the way.
I think that was the best thing we could do. Thank you, Chaplain. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. It is my pleasure to introduce the members of the official party. The Commander, 8th Combat Training Squadron, and the presiding officer for today's ceremony, Lieutenant Colonel John H. Page. Senior Enlisted Leader, 8th Combat Training Squadron, and the honoree for today's ceremony, Senior Master Sergeant Jason R. Banda. We are also pleased to extend a special welcome to the following honored guests. As appropriate, please hold your applause until the end of all introductions. The spouse of Senior Master Sergeant Banda, Miss Sophia Banda, and their children, Alora and Evan. Senior Master Sergeant Banda's parents, Miss Edna Banda and Mr. Angelito Banda, U.S. Navy retired. The Commander of Space Delta 8, Colonel Matthew E. Holston, U.S. Space Command J37 Senior Enlisted Leader, Chief Master Sergeant Chad Zibalon. And finally, to all commanders, directors, chiefs, family, friends, co-workers, and associates, welcome. We are glad you came to observe this special occasion. Your presence here is greatly appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Commander of the 8th Combat Training Squadron, Lieutenant Colonel John Page.
Hey, thank you so much for coming and supporting this awesome 22 years. That's incredible. Thank you, Colonel Holston. Thank you to the commanders, senior enlisted leaders, friends, especially the family. You guys have been with Jason throughout this entire journey, so thank you so much for supporting. Of course, CTS family is showing up strong, so thank you so much. A lot of people here, right? And so I think it speaks to the level of impact that you've had in your time in the service. And that's it. 22 years is incredible. And I am honored, I am humbled, and I'm so excited that Jason asked me to be the presiding official for this. I asked some advice from fellow commanders, from other mentors, and I had a retirement on Tuesday, and I had another one today, right? So back to back, and I asked, some mentors, what can I do to prepare for these retirement ceremonies? These are the first ones that I've done. One of the advice that I got, actually Colonel Holston, sir, you gave it to me, was, hey, reach out to some people, ask the member who was influential during your time in service, right? So I did that. I reached out to 2 people, and they talked about how great of a leader you are, how humble you are, right? How great of a friend you are. One of them, Chief Rivers, I think you knew him from the 7th Circuit, right? So he's like, yeah, all of those things, plus we also trade and sell comics. Okay. And so I asked him, like, you trade and sell comics? And he's like, oh yeah, I got him into comic books. We go to Comic Cons together. You can probably tell by the chaplain's invitation, Jason is a little bit of a geek, right? He's a warrior, he's an athlete, he's a leader, he's all those things, but he's definitely a little bit of a geek. ATTS, we were talking last year, hey, we need to get together and do an offsite to develop a strategic roadmap, right? Maybe align ourselves with some of the priorities of upper leadership and see where we need to go. And so we're looking at different venues. Ultimately, we decided to head to Senior Banda's house. Now, when you think of man cave, you maybe think of like a room or maybe a corner of the basement. He has a beautiful house in Banning Lewis, and it was a whole basement, right? He had a lot of cool stuff. He had arcade machines, multiple video gaming systems, VR sets, a bar down there, So yeah, he had a lot of cool stuff. We had a lot. We were productive, but we had a lot of fun. Gino was just knocking out that VR set, right? So it's good. But something else that was downstairs was some comics. He had some comics up there, right? He had some comics that were limited edition or special edition, very rare, probably really expensive. They were in these special cases, and I looked at it and I was like, hey, that struck me because comics were a big part of my childhood as well. So I started thinking, hey, big part of your career, you're still getting people into comics. So I started thinking, what is it that attracts people to comics? There's an art piece to it, but for myself and maybe Jason and maybe some of you that are into comics, there's also this idea of heroism, right? Responsibility. Doing something, maybe it against something that you don't want to do, or maybe it's against incredible odds, doing it out of duty and responsibility, and oftentimes at great personal sacrifice. Those are the stories that I personally, am gravitated to, and maybe it's why comics are something that our generation is really into, right? And so, 22 years going through your career, going through your record, I can tell absolutely this was a career of heroism. But like every superhero, right, they have an origin story. So you have your time in uniform, doing the deed, but then you have an origin story. So I thought, what better way to tell the story of a hero like Jason than through his own comic book. So to the right, my right, your right. But this inaugural edition of the Scorpions ATTS comic line, right? The first book entitled The Book of Banda. So, it's a big Star Wars geek. Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, that was, we had a lot of office talk regarding some of these shows, right? It's Banda, right? So I thought it was appropriate to title this one The Book of Banda. So the Book of Banda is going to start with his origin story, okay? And something that we're going to start with is the idea that, hey, heroes breed other heroes. And so his father, Angel, was an E6 in the Navy, and so that's where his origin story starts, with his father. That's Angel. That's Edna. And so the origin story starts in 1979 in Virginia when he was born. And there he is right there with the whole mop of hair. He starts off early in the idea of service, serving and doing something for the greater good, right? And so there he is right there. It's part of the Cub Scouts. 12-pack 4 month, right? So he starts off.
Oh, it looks like you.
Wait till you see the next picture. So that's it with the bowling ball. Here's what happens. He's out there playing baseball, and the baseball just comes in and wrecks him right in the ribs. And you're on the ground, you have bruised ribs, you're crying, you're crunched over. Edna sees this, and she's like, no more. Okay? No more sports. You may get injured. And so from the point he's a child, all the way up to high school, he's just bowls. I think it's more like he goes out and does it together, but it's a nice, safe sport. But here's the thing that got me a lot of this picture. Look at his hair. I know what that is, right? I personally know what that is. My 2 younger brothers know what that is. It's an Asian bowl cut. Asian bowl cut. When I was making this illustration, you can almost superimpose the bowl cut to his head. It's exact shape. Okay. So moving along, he's done with that, all right? He gets to go to high school. He can finally play sports now. I'm like, okay, he joins, he plays a bunch of sports, but one of the ones that he highlights was his time as part of a Filipino basketball team, okay? Filipino basketball team. So if it's a Filipino basketball team, you gotta have a sexy name. The name was G-Force, so that's him, playing with G-Force. He also joins junior ROTC, so scouts all the way throughout that idea of service. and joins junior ROTC in high school. In 3.5 years, part of the drill team. That's going to be important soon. The fact that he was a part of junior ROTC and the drill team. All right. That's him. See that? So that's his graduation picture, and his mustache is in red. Hey, after that he goes to Embry River, right? He goes to college for about 2.5 years. He, continues to. He does well. He joins a technical. He had several majors, but it was a technical major, and so generally people in his class, they didn't know how to brief, but he knew how to brief. He knew how to do PowerPoints. He was in the ROTC, so he's often like the cleaner, right? Just sweep in, do the brief, right? So he did well in school. He did ROTC for 2.5 years. For reasons that were outside of his control, he could not commission to ROTC, right? So I don't know if I was in the same situation, if I would have made that decision, but for him, he knew exactly what he wanted to do in life. So he decided, hey, if I can't join or commission to the ROTC program, then I'm going to enlist. Okay, so that's what happened at the turn of the millennium. He goes to Lackland, that's his next step, and he enlists. He goes to BMT. So here's what happens, right? He goes to his recruiter, like, hey, I'm going to enlist. They tell him, hey, look, just keep your head down, stay under the radar, and don't draw attention. Okay? So that's what he tries to do. Just slide in and just get it done, right? Well, there was an element leader in his flight that was horrible. I guess he was doing the puppeteer thing when he was marching, like this. He had no coordination, he was jacking it up, just couldn't execute the commands. And so they were looking at Jason, they see something. So, hey, Banda, come on, get him in the middle of drill time or something. They start calling out commands. So mind you, he's had 3.5 years, JROTC, as part of the drill team. Okay? He had 2.5 years in ROTC. For the first 2 years in ROTC, all you're doing is learning how to march, because you're getting ready for field training. So it's like 5.5 years of legit marching muscle memory, locked in, right? And so he's sitting there, he's executing all the movements, they're calling out commands, then they start calling out commands that they didn't teach the flight, right? And he's still able to execute them. So he gets caught. I don't know if it was the way it went down or something, but after that they just ride him, right? And it's a really difficult time. He does end up graduating as honor grad. There's only about 2 honor grads per flight, so he does really well, but he had a lot of attention. He was maybe an element leader, so when he went to Banda, he just kept his head down. He studied, got to learn the job. After Vandenberg, his first assignment, over here to Shriver, 1 stops. Okay, you'll see on the upper right, a quick progression. So he was an operator for the MSX satellite and SSO. He was an operator, he quickly became an instructor. While in the 50th OSS, he made senior airman below the zone, right? And then progressed to the group level to be an evaluator. He ended up making staff sergeant, so an extremely successful tour, right? Checked off all the boxes, okay? Got the early promotions, but the most important thing that happened during this time was, hey, I asked him, what's your favorite comic book? It's the X-Men. So somebody joins the superhero team. Here we go. Okay, so it's married to Sophia, right? Big. Told you I was going to get here. Yeah. His next assignment's on the fucking 2 switch, right? So he's a DSP. What's up?
SWAT.
Yeah. DSP satellite, so he's an SSO for that. He continues to do well, right? He becomes like an instructor right away. And then he goes right into the evaluation, right? He also joins the honor guard, so continue to push the boundary on service, right? Some of those ideas. The best story from here, though, is about a football game, okay? So he's part of OGB, so he's part of the group's football team. And they're undefeated the whole season, right? And they're in the final game. The first half is like a defensive battle where no one's scoring. But Jason's doing great. He's got 2 sacks, right? They start off the second half. He does like a 40-yard reception to score the first touchdown in the game, right? Awesome. And, they're in the lead, but in the end, when it came down to the wire, the other team was driving towards a winning score. And they stopped them, right? 4 and out. But right when they do that, they call you for like an illegal block. right? And when you look at the picture, it seemed like a dude ran into, it actually seemed like Colonel Ayers, who was a group commander at the time, pushed a guy into Jason. But anyways, the other team gets a whole set of new downs, and they're in the end zone, right? Like, oh my gosh, we're gonna lose this, right? But fourth down, they make a pass to the end zone. Guess what happens? Game-winning interception, right? And so they won that game, and Jason was the star. I think your name was like mentioned 3 or 4 times in one article.
So crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Okay, so hey, this next assignment is, Jason said, from an operational perspective, right? Not dealing with people, not with leadership, but from an ops perspective, the highlight of his career. Okay, you go to 76th Space Control Squadron, and he does 2 deployments out there. You're also looking at somebody with 2 tours of experience as an instructor and an evaluator. So he's an instructor there again, and he starts making some changes, making the organization better. He establishes the first ever Space Control IQT, Initial Qualification Training course. And that's a big deal. You got all the instructors know how much work that takes to put that in. But that's what he did. He made that unit better. There's also some interesting stories that came out of his time here. He deployed twice. He deployed once to Iraq, and the second time to Afghanistan. We're going to talk about the Afghanistan deployment. Okay, so the next illustration up. See that? It's a Chinook helicopter. What's that about? Why is a Chinook helicopter tied to a 1 Charlie 6 who's deployed downrange? So here's what happens. He's hanging out, and the senior enlisted advisor comes up to him. He's like, "Hey man, we got this space LNO, and we're doing a road show. We're gonna go and explain what space provides in the joint fight to all the special forces units in the AOR." And he asked, "Jason, do you want to come and be the second person, right? You're gonna have to learn how to use a thermal grenade." But he's like, "Yes, of course." Yeah, so a resounding yes. So it's him and a captain, right? They get on a C-130. They're sitting there with PJs, with combat controllers, and they're sitting there and they're flying first to Kandahar, right? They go to Kandahar. They brief their effects. It was a very successful brief. They're joking around, and Jason's like, "Hey, because we're providing you all these space effects, maybe you guys can give us something in return, right?" Everyone's laughing. It's a joke, but special operators, they live, right? So here's what happens. He's sleeping in his cot, and he wakes up, and there's a red light in his face. One of the special operators pointing this red light right in his face. He's like, "Hey, wake up! We got something." So they get themselves together. Him and the captain. They walk him up to a Pelican case, and they open the Pelican case, and it's a bunch of bloody weapons, like grenades, pistols, rocket launchers that they took from the Taliban. I'm like, dude, we are, and he told them, "Hey, we don't have time to clean this or process it, so it's all yours," right? So they definitely delivered. He got like a whole Pelican case full of weapons, right? Don't know how kosher it was, but it happened. So like, hey, this is great. They take the Pelican case, they get on the C-130, they're flying to, what's the next one? Sharana, right? They're going to Sharana. They go there, they brief the Delta team out there, and they have a great briefing. But when they're there, their C-130 breaks down, and it's under maintenance, right? So we need to go to Fob Salerno. How do we do that, right? How are we going to get there? And it was at night, and so out of the darkness, a truck comes screeching by, pulls up, and it was the Delta team that they just briefed. Like, dude, we got you seats on a Chinook helicopter. We're on a resupply mission. We got to send a bunch of snacks, tobacco, a bunch of stuff, right? Resupply. We're heading that way. You guys can join us. I'm like, yes, let's do it. So they grab the case, they get on the plane, and they get on the helicopter, and they're flying. Here's what happens, right? First, sort of near-death experience from Jason's perspective. They're flying, and the helicopter comes under small arms fire, right? It's getting shot at. He's like, what in the world? And in his mind, he's like, is this it? This is crazy. I'm getting shot at. I'm in a helicopter, right? The gunner for the 50 cal stands up, goes to the back, and starts unloading rounds towards where the small arms fire is coming from. Just unloading. And he's like looking around with his gun, like ready to shoot. Like, is this going down? The guy in front of him is like, no. A few minutes later, passes by, they're on the small range fire, the smallest fire stops, the 50 cal gunner gets back up, pulls out his chair, folds out the chair, sits down, starts reading the book that he was reading, and then Jason calms down, he takes a look around, and all the other Special Forces operators are just asleep. So Jason's perspective, like, this is like a near-death experience, right? But you know, he was really amazed that this is everyday life, these special operators. So they land, and the landing is funny too. So when they get to the location, right before it lands, these are special operators, right? They don't waste any time. They're well-oiled machine. They're like on their knees, chest to back, ready to go. Right when the bay door opens, they're gone. They sprint, they take their gear, their kit, and they're gone. And it's Jason and a captain standing in the middle of nowhere. Where did they go? Jason can't see his hand in front of his face. It is pitch black. Gone. Like, they're just gone. They book it. And you know, he doesn't have MPGs, the captain does. Captain goes on, he feels around, you know, finds him, grabs him, like, what are you gonna do? Right? So they're looking around for a while, and the captain's looking around, I'm like, hey, I see a small light out there. That might be where they're off. He's like, we should go there. Jason's like, you for real? Walk towards the light, okay? Alright. So, it's the captain, it's Jason Banda holding him in the back with a Pelican case, and hang it over. They eventually make it over to the light, which ends up being the tent where the Special Forces guys are. Open the tent, and they're like, yeah, we gotta go to Foster. I'm like, we gotta get up there. So they get him up there, but so here's the next picture, right? He's playing around with some big kid that he inherited from the Special Forces launcher. Yeah, he's looking a little ripped, but comics supposed to do that to you. You gotta know. So hey, you know what? His flight back to Bagram was also pretty interesting because he shows up to the C-130 and he has Afghanistan prisoners that are there. They've got their weapons in his Pelican case, but they're, you know, Afghanistan, their faces are covered, they're tied up, they're like that. And he flies back and he's sitting like right across from him. And he's like, man, I can't believe these guys have the opportunity to just kill the closest American nearby, but the Special Forces guys, that's what they do. It's just everyday life, right? And so, in addition to all of that, you know, all the improvements that he made to the unit as well as part of the training mission, that was absolutely one of the best deployment stories I've ever heard, especially from a space operator. So his next assignment after that, all right, 11 Swifts. Now he's operating Sivers. He's in the Sivers mission. That's a Sivers HEO satellite. So now you got to think, right? You got somebody with back-to-back multiple training and evaluations backgrounds. Okay, and so it's a big deal. He becomes the chief of the NCOIC of training. So he's getting into that leadership role out there. He's, you know, this is the time when we had Sivers HEO, Sivers MEO, and you know, the legacy system. They were all on different systems, but we were merging it in. And he was pivotal in making a, I think it's like $16 million upgrade, the biggest in 12 years happened out there. And so once again, leading to big improvements. Mission impact. But the best thing that happens out there is another member of the X-Men, right? Boom. After this born, and his birthday is super easy to remember. It's 10, 11, 12.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, 10, 11, 12. Easy birthday to remember. So he's born with his family. Next, after that, he goes to the J-Spot. He makes Master Sergeant there. So the coolest story that he has from his time at the J-Spot is actually not at the J-Spot. Okay, it's at the San Francisco airport. So he's at the San Francisco airport and he's traveling from the TR, right? He's with the staff sergeant. And they go to the food court because they're just starving. They need something to eat. So he's chowing down. This lady comes by, right, and taps their table. Right? And Jason looks up and she's doing one of these. She's choking. Okay, she's choking. And so Jason's like, man, are you choking? No one else is doing anything. So he gets up and he starts doing the Heimlich. Everything comes out. Everything comes out and hits the table. He essentially saves her life. Okay, he saves her life. While this is going on, you know, when they went to the food court, they weren't sitting and eating together, but there was a captain, a Marine captain from the J-Spot that Jason knew. So they said, he saw the whole thing happen, right? So the lady eventually, you know, she throws up. There's a janitor right behind him, like, hey, should I call medical? Jason's like, yes! You should call medical, right? Call them, right? So he's like, he stays with the lady, makes sure she's good to go, she can breathe, she feels fine, she's not gonna die. Okay, got it. The staff sergeant is freaking out. She's like, what just happened? Jason just goes back and gets ready to eat again. Staff sergeant's freaking out. The janitor is still in the back, like, you still need medical? Like, yeah, man, call somebody, probably, right? The staff sergeant's like, how are you eating that? How are you eating? That's the same stuff that she choked on. So she's freaking out. And so Jason's like, okay, you know what? We need a beer. And she's like, yeah, I need a beer. We need a beer after that. Okay, so they go to the nearest bar, and this is crazy, right? So they go to the nearest bar, and the bar is packed. There's only one table available that the host and hostess begin sitting there at, and it's the table with the ladies whose life is just saved, right? Jason's like, this is so awkward. Like, get a beer, all right. So he sits down, and she thanks him. She buys him drinks. He goes back to the J spot, and when he goes back, it's under General Buck at this time, right? He says, General Buck. So they're like, hey, there's an all-call. Are you going to the all-call? They keep bugging. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the all-call, but they keep bugging him. You're going to be at the all-call, right? And he's like, it's an all-call. We all have to be there. What happened? Did I miss a step? Have I been late? Like, why are they on me about this? Like, you need to be at the all-call. So the all-call happens, and like, you need to stand in this line. I'm like, okay. So Jason's standing in this line, and it's with all the decorations that are being read out. I'm like, did they forget a decoration from the previous assignment? You couldn't think of, like, what's going on, right? So the Marine captain that was there that saw the whole thing, he wrote him up for a commendation medal, act of courage. Very rare to see that in the record, right? Act of courage. And one of the last lines is, it was like a remarkable bias for action saved the woman's life. Right? So absolutely an act of heroism. He did tell me though when he went back home and he told Sophia what happened. Like, she's a nurse. So this is like her job every day. So she sort of downplayed it a little bit. Like, hey babe, I came home, I just saved somebody's life, right? At the airport. She's like, okay, what'd you do? And I think what you told me was you started critiquing like exactly how did you do that? Right? Like, okay, alright. So great story out there. Still making the organization better. Consecutive tours, multiple consecutive tours as an instructor, goes out there and establishes the CMR program that's used by the entire JSPOC, right? And so just continue to make the mission better. Once again, great stories, but not the best story out of that assignment. The best story being another member of the X, Holly's born. And so she joins the team, another big milestone. Okay, all right. So, I don't know. I mean, for a lot of people, maybe not everybody, all roads lead back to building one eventually, right? So he goes to building one. He joins the S5R division. He leads requirements for electronic warfare weapons. He makes senior master sergeant there. And then his next job is what he's always been wanting. This has been his goal for his entire career. Like, I want to be a squadron superintendent. That was your ultimate goal, and you went back full circle. I sort of know how that feels, right? I was in the OSS early in my career as well, but came back to the OSS to be the squadron superintendent there. Did a lot of tremendous stuff. Transferred to the Space Force, the village reorganization, stand up of the SBAC, a ton of great work. Right? Stand up of the ACTS, putting on the new rank. You know, everyone was excited for that. Jason went, and he was, I don't know, you were camping out at the BS or something, and then when they opened, he went to the back with a cardboard box. Right. Yeah, it was him and Sergeant Bowman. They just hoarded all the rank. So people were complaining about no rank. I was just quiet. Like, I don't know what don't ask me. But hey, look, what an incredible career. I just have one more story to say. Okay? I had an opportunity to be at a commissioning ceremony at Notre Dame, ROTC. It was an ROTC commissioning ceremony. It was 2018. And the guest speaker was General Robin Rand. He was the commander of Global Strike Command. And he gave a great speech, but there was one part of it that really hit home and stayed with me. He described a senior NCO that he worked with, someone who had spent 20 plus years in service, someone who has gone through multiple deployments. bled, sweat, tears, he shed all of that to get to where he was, right? Someone who, all the things that we're talking about with terrorism, did a tremendous amount out of responsibility, out of duty, even though it was really, really hard. And he was talking to the cadets and midshipmen who are soon going to take the oath and commission. So he charged them, look, this gave a brief synopsis of the senior NCO, and he asked the soon-to-be officers, work hard to be worthy to lead someone like that, right? Someone like that. And that hit me really hard. I want to say you are a senior NCO like that. You elevate my game, right? As a commander, I was so privileged to command the ATTS beside you. I want to say, look, what's the ultimate ending that we want for every hero? Right? Whether it's a Western, whether it's a Marvel movie or anything, right?
Right off to the sunset.
Right off into the sunset, that's right. That's it, right off. It's a great metaphor. The sun is setting on your previous life, right? The previous chapter of your life, you're writing off. And so, this is something that you deserve. There's a medallion right there. You absolutely deserve this. The 22 years, right? I have no doubt that the people that you served alongside, the people that have led you, and the people that you've led view you as a hero. So congratulations. I want to say thank you for the incredible service. I want to say thank you to the family as well for serving, for supporting him, being with him in this journey, and really serving alongside him. You got a great gig next, Florida. I'm a little jealous, right? Maybe I'll meet you there in a few years. But thank you so much. And you are well deserving of the sunset ending and the next chapter of your life. So come on up and let's get it started.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the formal portion of today's ceremony. Attention to orders. Citation to accompany the award of Meritorious Service Medal, 2nd Oakley Club Cluster to Jason R. Banda. Senior Master Sergeant Jason R. Banda distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States as Senior Enlisted Leader, 8th Combat Training Squadron, from 2 September 2020 to 1 September 2022. During this period, Senior Banda guided 189 military and civilian personnel in the Space Force's largest mission qualification program, driving over 10,000 training hours, 26 courses, and producing 150 operators for 5 squadrons. During this historic stand-up of the United States Space Force, Senior Banda facilitated 113 service transfers from the Air Force into our new service, realigned 245 squadron members across 5 flights to establish the Delta S staff, and allocated 22 intel professionals across 3 deltas. Senior Banda's visionary leadership was critical to the Army Satellite Communications mission transfer, stipulating a 19-member requirement for a new training detachment to support 5 globally located wideband satellite communications operations centers. He was a warrior who championed advanced training to increase the lethality of our operators through a 30-day course encompassing 12 space threats and 21 tactics, techniques, and procedures. Finally, Senior Banda oversaw Delta 8's reorganization to unitize training, realizing the Space Operations Command's initiative, and establishing the Space Force's first Operations Support Squadron, conversion to a combat training squadron. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Senior Master Sergeant Jason Banda culminate in distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Space Force. Standing for the reading of the retirement order.
Publish the orders.
Attention to orders. Special order number AC009138, dated 2 September 2021 by direction of the Secretary of the Air Force, Senior Master Sergeant Jason R. Banda 8th Combat Training Squadron, Schriever Space Force Base, Colorado, effective the 31st of August 2022. You are relieved from active duty, retired the first day of September 2022, per Air Force Instruction 36-3203, and a grade of Senior Master Sergeant. Ladies and gentlemen, you can now be seated. Lieutenant Colonel Page will now present Senior Master Sergeant Banda with his retirement certificate. The retirement certificate reads, Certificate of Retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America. To all who shall see these presents, greetings. This is to certify that Senior Master Sergeant Jason R. Banda, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Space Force on the first day of September 2022. Signed, Colonel Matthew E. Holston, Commander, Space Delta. At this time, Senior Master Sergeant Banda's wife, Sophia, will present his retirement pen and will receive a certificate of recognition.
All right.
Okay.
Get him! Get him!
Slap it on there. Slap it on there.
The certificate reads, Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Space Force. In grateful appreciation, the United States Space Force presents this certificate of recognition to Sophia Banda for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for your support. They gave the strength and purpose to your spouse's service. Signed, Colonel Matthew Holston, Commander, Space Delta.
Yeah.
Now for the gift giving. Senior Master Banda would like to present some gifts to his wife, children, and parents.
Excited about your gift? I'm so excited for my gift. You're excited for your gift? Thank you. Oh, look.
There. That's for you. See? I don't want you. You don't want you. What's mine? I got you something else, Dad. This one's yours, the big one. You got the big one. And this one is your Lola's. I'll put it here.
Okay, stand up.
Oh, this one's yours, Dad. Lots of presents, sorry. Lots of gifts. See? You got this one too. That's your new one. Let's see.
Wow.
You too, buddy.
Oh my god, I had that.
You too.
Oh my god. That's it.
Thanks, Mom.
That is in here. I know it is. I know it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Specialist Forward George Sanchez.
This is my big
Senior Honor facility will perform a flag holding ceremony in honor of Senior Master Sergeant Banda for more than 200 years. The American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration among its citizens. 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white and a blue field, representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and the design of the flag evolved into the flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor, white signifies purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both at home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the stars and stripes, waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry, that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown into space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellations of Space Force satellites that circle our globe, and on the fin flash of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every guardian and airman who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on our U.S. Space Force, nor the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of Americans has been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's guardians and airmen remain committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us in generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show the respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, guardians and airmen have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we, as Americans, enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and the patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you SMSgt Jason R. Banda, United States Space Force, retired.
Down so I wouldn't cry. As I'm almost going verbatim here. Right. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for. So first off, thank you to the entire team that came out to support my retirement ceremony. I completely understand the work that goes behind this. I've been in so many before that also kind of put it together, right? So again, thank you, Chad. So Chad and I started our careers together way back when. That was the one-stops story that Colonel K told. So I'm glad we're still pressed today. You know, I'm glad you're here residing in area in my retirement. To my AOs, Sergeant Select Huster, Sergeant Select Thomas, thanks. Obviously, my family and I thank you for organizing the event. Getting through the retirement ceremony checklist is no daunting task, right? Really daunting task. But thank you for taking that huge item off my to-do list and not having to worry about it. Colonel Peg, thank you for being my presiding official, for all the kind words, and I did not know this comic book thing was coming. But thank you for capturing my career in the Air Force and the Space Force. I've been fortunate in my entire career to have leaders and supervisors like yourself that I could always reach out to for advice and mentorship. And although I know you tried your best to keep me in the service, you offered me that blank check, right? You're still supportive of my decision to pursue other opportunities outside of the military and close out this chapter on a high note. So thank you. To the leaders, friends, and coworkers in the audience. So each of you have made an impact on my career. Regardless of how long we've actually known each other, there are always lessons to be learned when you take the time to listen and observe. So here's some of my career takeaways. 1, no one should care more about your career than yourself. 2, realize when you need to hold yourself accountable for the events around you. And then 3, never lose who you are as a person. To my family who came here to support Sophia and the kids and I today, thank you for being there for us throughout all the years, for supporting Sophia and the kids when I was deployed, when I was TDY, training, but also coming to visit us every time we move to a new location and enjoy that family bonding time we always talk about. Can't wait to move closer to all of you in Florida and spend more of that. To my parents, to my parents, I love you both. It doesn't feel that long ago. Hey. It doesn't feel that long ago when I told you I went into a recruiter's office and was into the Air Force after a few years of college. Hey, you supported me, Sophia, and now the kids throughout my entire career. You both were quick to drop everything to come out whenever we needed your help. Thank you for always being there for us and supporting us no matter the situation. Both of you had a massive influence on who I am as a person, my drive, my work ethic that brought me to this point today. And I hope that I've made you proud of what I've accomplished in my life so far. To my kids, Evan and Laura, you both are my why. The reason I get up in the morning, put the uniform on, and do the best that I can on a daily basis. You both are the reason I try my hardest at everything I do so that I can set a great example and be the best dad I can be for you both. And hopefully when you both get older, I've done enough in my time that you can look back and be proud of what I've done. I love you both. Last and of course, not least, to my wife, Sophia. Okay. So we've been through so much in our time in the military. From literally counting coins so that we can eat out and have a date night, the deployments and TDYs, to raising 2 children on the verge of settling into, hopefully, our forever home. You supported me when I hated my job, when I didn't get that promotion, and when I felt like it wasn't enough, when we were scrounging to make ends meet, and even now, as we head into the unfamiliar next chapter of our lives. You've always been the one to pick my head up, give me that solid kick in the butt when I needed it, but also the one to tell me that no matter what, we would get through this together. Well, babe, we did it. We made it. There's no way I could have done this without you, and this ceremony is just as much yours as it is mine. I love you. All right. Okay. As a parting note, to all those that are still serving, it seems easy to say when you're at the end, but your time in the service will go quicker than you expect. The key to success, and what I've come to realize, and this is my opinion, is not in getting promoted. It's the legacy and positive effect you leave with the mission and the people you work with day in and day out. It's the relationships and connections that you build that influence others but also influence yourself for the better. Love the missions, build great connections, take care of yourselves and your families, and thank you for 22 unforgettable years.
What an awesome career, seriously. Thank you, Senior Master and Banda. The men and women of the United States Space Force, and especially all the members of the 8th Combat Training Squadron, are proud to serve with you and wish you every success in all your future endeavors. God bless. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the departure of the official party. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Master Jason Daniel's family appreciate you sharing this special time. I invite you to the reception in the back of the room. Thank you.